Okay, English 201. Um, I finished The Tempest. That means that we have successfully been through all of the texts in class, which, just to review, way back at the beginning of the semester, I taught you about the five key terms, and then we went over this really cool Shakespeare poem called The Phoenix and the Turtle, and there was a Batman comic book involved. We took a look at a Kafka story called The Metamorphosis, where a guy gets turned into a bug, and then we looked at Othello. We watched the movie, and that was you guys were the last students that I saw that day that semester, the last physical students that I saw. We watched the Othello movie, and then I had some videos about Othello, explaining sort of what's going on, why Iago is such an interesting villain, really one of the greatest villains ever. And after that, we did The Tempest, and for The Tempest, we looked at two things in The Tempest. Um, we looked at how I can't summarize all of it, but with Othello, we talked about good and evil, and that Desdemona is kind of like pure good, and Iago's like pure evil and chaos. And we talked about his strange motivations, and how he's even a little bit like Shakespeare because he controls people and manipulates events. And we also talked about Prospero and how Prospero is a little bit like Shakespeare, sort of saying goodbye to his magic, his illusions. We also talked about Prospero as being kind of a bad person with his slaves and manipulating everybody. Um, and that was the end of the semester. We did the whole thing. So I'm done. And there was a paper on the Metamorphosis that you already took back when we were in class together, although you can send me a second draft of that if you want to raise the grade on that. There also was a paper on Othello, and there was you discussed Othello's last speech, and some of you guys have sent that to me. There's also a paper on The Tempest. Similarly, I want you to discuss Prospero's last speech in the play there, and you send that paper to me. It should be about 1,000 words, just like the paper 1 and 2. There is so there's a so that we did three big things: the Metamorphosis, Othello, and the Tempest. And you have paper 1, 2, and 3 were about those three things. Paper 1 about the Metamorphosis by Kafka, paper 2 is about Othello by Shakespeare, and paper 3 is about the Tempest by Shakespeare. Um, okay, looking good. Um, the There's one more paper though. I hope you didn't forget that. If you look at the syllabus, it says there are 4 papers total. In your syllabus, um, is an explanation of what that paper should look like. And actually, I'm realizing now I have the wrong thing pulled up on my computer here, so I'm going to need to pull up the right thing because that is not going to work. All right, so in your, uh-oh, my computer's not happy. There we go. Okay, let's get out of this. So we talked about, there's a 4th paper. And the 4th paper is also something that you have, in order to pass the class, you're probably going to need to do all 4 papers. I guess technically, if you got straight A's on paper 1, 2, and 3, if you don't turn in paper 4, you get like a D. So if you declare the class pass fail, I guess, but you need straight A's. And anyway, nobody's going to do that. So paper 4, you got to do it. So let's take a look at the paper 4 assignment, which is in the syllabus. Pull this up. So if you're in the syllabus and you go to page 4, you have the assignment for paper 4. Now, here's the thing about me and my classes. I really try to make the papers in the class pretty similar and pretty simple. The only danger here is, I just want you to be clear, there are 4 papers total. You may get confused and think there's only 3 because we study the Kafka's Metamorphosis, Shakespeare's Othello, and Shakespeare's The Tempest, but there's a 4th paper. Let's talk about the 4th paper. The 4th paper assignment is here. It's in your syllabus if you need it. If you don't have a syllabus, email me. I'll email it to you. All term I've been comparing Shakespeare and Kafka to modern life to show you why Shakespeare still matters, like when I compared Iago to the Joker. You guys remember that? Now it's your turn. Show that Shakespeare and Kafka matter by comparing something we read, or some part of it, to a story, or some part of a story from the last 5 years picked by you. A book, a poem, a comic book, a play, a movie, a television episode, a video game, a song, or an album, or a story from the news. And you add research. That's the last bit. So you gave me a paper on Kafka. You gave me a paper on Othello. You gave me a paper on The Tempest. The 4th paper, you're going to be revisiting one of those. Or you could also write about the Phoenix and the Turtle if you want to. You're going to be revisiting one of those things. And you're going to be doing something slightly different. Instead of looking at a speech in the play, you're going to pick something in the play that you think is interesting. And you're going to compare it to some other story picked by you. Now, one of the biggest mistakes my students make when they're doing this paper is they try to pick something they think I would like. I've been teaching you shit I like all semester long. Paper 4 is time for you to talk about something you like. So I bet you have a favorite song or a favorite book or a favorite movie or a favorite TV show, well, you're going to have to pick an episode, or a favorite something to write about. And all you have to do is find a connection between something you like and something we read in class this semester. Now, you don't. Now, one of the mistakes students make is they think they have to compare everything in the story of The Tempest to everything in this other movie they picked. You don't. You do not have to do that. Just take. You could compare a character in one play. Caliban, for example, you could compare to a monster in a different play. Or you could take Caliban from The Tempest and you could compare him to a monster from a movie. And that's it. That's your whole paper. And you only have to talk about Caliban, not Prospero, not Miranda, not any of that stuff. So you just take two things and you link them up. The reason I do that, by the way, is I think a lot of teachers, when they teach Shakespeare, teach it like it's a history class, and that the important thing to learn is what life was like back then. I think I'm not a historian. I don't give a shit about history. What interests me is I think Shakespeare is connected to real life, which means if you like something, I think you can connect it to Shakespeare or Kafka. So find a link between something you care about um, and the play. So I'll give you a really simple example, and please don't do this unless you're really interested and you already care. It's always scary for me to give you guys examples because some of my students are like, "Oh, that's what I'm going to do." Pick your own fucking thing to do. But if you are a fan of Marvel Comics, you could write a paper comparing Doctor Strange to Prospero. If you're a fan of Harry Potter, you could compare Dumbledore to Prospero, right? Stuff like that. If you like bad guys in movies, you can compare them to Iago. Don't do the Joker. I already did that one. Find your own bad guy to compare to Iago. Find your own wizard or magical creature to compare to Prospero. Find your own monster to compare to Caliban. Um, find your own story to compare about the guy that got turned into a bug. So that's it. Although actually, I'll give you a paper topic if you want one. There's a movie called The Fly. You can totally write a paper comparing the movie The Fly to Kafka's Metamorphosis. I would actually enjoy that. But again, only if you enjoy disgusting science fiction horror movies should you do that. Pick something you like and try to connect it to something we did in class. You write a paper about it, and the paper's 1,000 words long. And that's it. That's how you finish the semester. Now there's one more slightly tricky detail in this, but you can handle it. It's not that hard. You just got to add 2 bits of research. And my recommendation, by the way, write the paper first and then add the research in. A lot of students are like, I'm going to research first. You don't even know what the fuck you're researching. Write the paper first, do the research, then add the research into the already completed paper, making it. So maybe if it's 1,000 words, write 750 words and then get your research and then stick it somewhere in there in your paragraphs. So the question then becomes, what the fuck is research? Now, the thing is, you should have learned this in 101 because 101 had a research paper. So it's the same thing you learned in 101. You need an unusual fact or an expert opinion, and you're going to need two things. You got to quote 2 people in the in your paper. Here's a fun trick question. At the end of paper 4, how many things are you going to have in your works cited? Students go, 2 things, because they're 2 bits of research. It's a good guess. But it's actually 4 things, because you're going to have the thing we read in class, plus the story you're comparing it to, plus a little bit of research from somewhere, plus a little bit of research from somewhere else. So the question becomes, how do you do research? And that's what these next couple of videos are going to tell you about how to do research. But what research for my class consists of is you're going to quote something in here. You must discuss in your paper 2 pieces of research, probably in the form of a quotation. 2 major types of research include expert opinion, for example, a professor who knows about a story talking about it, or unusual facts like history, etymology, that's word history, cultural history, biographical information. Okay, and that's it. So I'm going to, and it's not that hard. It's not that hard, really. If you're writing about a movie, you could find an expert movie review. If you are talking about uh, a movie that's getting made, you could talk about, anyway, we'll talk more about it when I get into the research thing. I'm out of time on this video. So, okay, that's it. It's not too difficult, but that is paper 4. Once you do all 4 papers, you can pass the class and move on with your life. All right, I'll see you in the next video.